And like plenty of times where, they just let unfortunately, some of the most transphobic people in my extended family were cis gay men, which sucks. So, like, it's one of those things where it really is wild, where you're just like, man, you really completely have missed the point. My stepbrother got arrested for resisting arrest. No other charge. Like, what was he doing before they started arresting him? Literally, Lulu, this happened to a friend of mine when we were teenagers. And even as a privileged white teenager, it was one of my first tip offs to how bad police are. Like, thankfully, both of my white upper middle class parents have always been very anti police. Um, my father frequently told stories about protesting Vietnam when he was a young man, being dragged by his hair for blocks and like having his face kicked in, essentially with the photos to show. Um, Definitely colored my view of law enforcement from a young age. Like, but I realized that a lot of people don't have that. But like, I remember thinking, oh, well, like things have gotten better, right? And then a friend of mine who was a fucking white kid and like, again, not a troublemaker or anything. We were, out in the winter, classically underdressed as New England teenagers. And my friend, he had been standing there with his arms like crossed over himself because he was wearing a hoodie and not a proper jacket when it was like 20 degrees outside, right? And we had all been smoking cigarettes, which was not illegal for us to be doing, by the way. We were all of age to have purchased cigarettes at the time, which was 18. And we had not been smoking weed on this rare occasion. And he started getting in the face of this other kid. And one of the things that he cited when my friend was getting, questioned by this police officer is that he had crossed his arms over his chest and was trying to intimidate the police officer. Like, I shit you not. Fuck the police. I still remember that my Uncle Frankie, who was gay and also a drag queen, started writing me from jail, even though I didn't really know him. It was literally because he had a good relation with my mom. It's kind of an interesting memory. I'm so curious. Now I want to know about Uncle Frankie. A year and a half later, my mom took me and a few of my new friends out to the mom. We stopped to eat at Panera, where we bumped into that nasty teacher, looked in surprise, and said, Corey, you look fantastic. I looked happy, surrounded, and was surrounded by cute boys. After she left, my mom told me and my friends what she had said about me. Wow, Corey, that bitch. Ugh, I'm glad. I'm glad that you had that support. My dad was a cop for a hot second, and therefore he knows all the ones in town and grew up with a lot of them. And I have to frequently remind him that calling the police in most places isn't like calling your friend. Yeah, it can be scary because you don't know who's going to show up. I haven't said it to his face yet, but there's also a big fucking reason he didn't make it long as a cop. Yeah, yeah. I wasn't surprised, but all my friends hugged me and started bad-mouthing the teacher. Damn right they should. But yeah, no, that is wild, Whitney, where it's like, yeah, a lot of people have that hard time understanding that because they've been taught, like, this is a safe and or a good person. And it's like, definitely, like, absolutely not, right? The other thing that cracks me up is, so before Mark and I moved, the town that we lived in was the town I grew up in. So for a hot minute, I was a townie. Let me tell you, terrible decision. Don't become a townie unless you really, really are ready, to subject yourself to that. But I had lived in the town that I grown up in, which is a very small New England town. And as a result, I remember the first time that I went to go vote, right? Which I had to go to the school to go vote. There are, of course, police and other, people who are watching the building and, corralling folks and having a goings on. And of course, one of the police officers who ushers us into the gymnasium is none other than my brother's like friend from high school who used to smoke weed and underage drink in my parents' basement. And I just looked at him for a hot second, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and like literally I just had this look on my face of, how in the world are you gonna be a cop now? Oh, Dan stopped being friend with this person a long time ago. But yes, my brother's friend from high school, who again used to illegally do all sorts of drugs and underage drinking in my parents' basement,